Because when we look at the customer, he or she is eventually the focus point in any business nowadays in the digital world. Let's look at Amazon, the most customer-centric company in the world. They have this practice, it's almost like symbolic, that they always leave an empty chair in their meeting rooms, right? That they take this chair and bring it closer to the meeting table whenever they have very important meetings, right? It's everyone sitting there around the table, and Jeff Bezos takes these chairs and symbolically leaves it empty close to everyone else. Why would he do that? Well, because that's the chair of the customer. That is the most important person in the room, although not being there. And although it's symbolic, it says a lot about the way that we have to be more customer-centric. Why? Because basically most of the time we make decisions without considering the customer in the room. And this is wrong because in a digital world, one of the very important trends that's happening is that the customer and end consumer as well are more and more empowered thanks to digital. Let's look at the 4 big ways that digitalization gave more power to the customer. First, access to information. Our customer can read, inform themselves, they can compare prices, they can get in touch with our competitors easily, they can read reviews, and this empowers them to make better decisions. Information is power. Second, there's more competition, but not only competition within producers of material science, but also basically among channels. It's even a competition to get our customers' attention because they're bombarded constantly with inputs, buy this, buy that, download this, download that. And therefore, our attention span and our customers' attention span is lower and lower. This definitely makes it harder to get their attention. The third big characteristic is that there are lower switching costs. What are switching costs? These are the costs that you have in order to change your supplier of your experience and of your business. What does this mean? Basically, it means that, in a pre-digital world, I would always go to that shoe shop in my neighborhood because its competitor would be far away. I would have to drive, I would pay gasoline and parking, and so I would continue going to that shoe shop. Why? Although the experience was very bad and although the prices were expensive. Why? Because my switching costs were high. Gasoline, parking ticket, driving, and so on. Now, if I go to the shoe shop around the corner of my house and the prices are slightly higher than on e-commerce, my switching cost is 0. I just open my app on e-commerce and I buy the same pair of shoes in one of their competitors. And the same for us. This makes it harder to get loyalty from our customers. Why? Because they can easily switch us, a Dow, to another supplier because we don't have the same power as before. And the fourth big characteristic is that customers are content creators. Not only customers, but end consumers. And so whenever they can create content through social media, through blogs, and basically, spread the word about their experience, well, a good experience can make them our marketing tool, but a bad experience can make them our worst nightmare. Why? Because the whole market would know, and this will create problems in the future, and so on. I want you to think about the following scenario. Think about, and I know, the Netflix addicts recognize the images of one episode of Black Mirror, the series on Netflix. I want you to imagine yourself living in a world where basically each interaction that you have is rated. And you have this rating like on a hologram, like on your head that everyone can see. Imagine a meeting with a customer at Dow, right? Imagine that he or she can rate you on the spot, on the way that you have the meeting, on the way that you follow up to the meeting, about your proposal and so on. And this rating is available to everyone else, to your boss, to your competitor, to other customers. I want you to think about the following. How does the way that you grant a good experience to your customer change? You will focus in granting the best experience possible. Why? Because you want those 5 stars. You want the best rating, right? And so this changes a lot the power dynamics. Again, we have to focus more on experience. Why? Because we live in a world of transparency. And although you might say, Andrea, we're not there yet, I don't know. Just open your Uber app and you will see that we are all rated. We already live in this world. And the second question that I want you to ask you based on this scenario is, what happens if we are connected the whole time and we're online the whole time, giving rating the whole time? Think about it. Well, we generate more data. And when we look at data, basically what happens is that the more data and the more interconnected we are, the more data we generate. And when we look at history, more than 90% of data generated since the beginning of times was generated over the last decade. Why? Because of digitalization of businesses, both outside in the relationship with customers, but also inside in production, supply chain, and so on. And so this does not stop growing. We reach the point where we have 44 zettabytes of data, which is huge number. If you stock this into iPads and you pile them up one on top of each other, it's 6 times the distance between Earth and the moon. So it's a lot of data. And you might say, okay, great, Andrea, so you're telling me just the more that I get data from my customer, the better decisions I will make, the more value I will add to them. Well, the truth is that it's not that straightforward, because it really depends on what we do with all that data. Think about the following situation. One day you wake up and you feel sick. You have some strange symptoms. You don't know what they are, and so you rush to your doctor and you tell them, doctor, what do I have? Make a diagnosis. And imagine that the doctor tells you, look, Andrea, I don't need to see your symptoms. I believe that you have this and that because based on what you told me, right? So go home, take this, prescription, and just don't come back. How do you feel? Frustrated, of course. You think, well, they didn't do their job, right, of making a diagnosis based on my symptoms. And you're like, Andrea, what does this have to do with us? The truth is that it has to do a lot with us. Oftentimes in businesses, we do exactly the same as this doctor. We innovate or we sell without starting from our customer symptoms that are data. We even can have these data, but we still do the same customer relationship, the same style of selling based on what worked in the past. And it might have worked in a pre-digital world where the customer was not as empowered as today, but today we have to focus more and more on our customer symptoms, and the way that we get those customer symptoms is through data. You know from whose symptoms we usually start our sales and innovation process? Our own symptoms, our goals, our rentability, our products that are easier to sell, our inventory, and so on. And this is not sustainable anymore.